bet you want me to say something, don't you?
So we might as well start then, I suppose, mightn't we?
Got to start sometime.
Yeah. So thanks for coming over. Obviously, I've
My pleasure.
done an interview with you before, but that was a sort of written exam rather than
Did
audio.
I pass? Well, I must have passed.
You passed,
I'm here.
yeah, but it's
Yeah,
taken
I'm good.
about 2 years later to do the follow-up, which is Mark Denton, the designer. Different bloke from the advertising bloke, isn't he?
No, he's
Is
the
he-
same bloke because, art direction and design. Is he not the same thing?
Is it?
Oh, I don't know. You remember in the old days there used to be a definite divide between the world of advertising and the world of design. In fact, I think D&AD, years ago, sometime last century, the designer said, right, we want a night of their own, of our own.
Yeah.
I think they tried it for 1 year.
Well,
Because they were different worlds.
But didn't they, I think Tim Delaney told me this, I think they looked into it, they might have done it once, and they found out that 80% of the income was coming from the advertising.
I think you told me that, yeah.
And the designer could do it, but only if they had 20% of the budget or something like that.
Yeah, I can see why they might go off the idea, but I'm pretty sure that they did it for 1 year, and but it was a definite divide between the two disciplines, and now everyone's eating off each other's plate, aren't they? Everyone's doing
well, it
the
used to
same
be,
stuff.
not only was it a divide, the advertising people and art directors used to look, I wouldn't say look down on the designers, but I remember, for example, I talked to Mark Reddy about it, that I remember when Mark went to BMP for the first time, there was a group of hardcore BMPers who used to call him the Doily King or something. Because he was because he was designy, and it was like, and that was considered a really bad insult. He's a bit designy and fiddly and doily, which is just so bizarre, isn't it? That was ever seen as a different thing.
Well, to a certain extent, you could look through a load of annuals, a load of old D&AD annuals, and compared to certainly the design section, there's a lot of advertising art direction looks very workmanlike, very crafted. Nice photographs, considered typography, but it would be relatively devoid of ornament, wouldn't it? And I remember when, and I've forgotten who the creative director was. It might have been John Hegarty. I can't remember. This really was a long time ago, when TBWA was called TweeBWA.
That's right. Yeah, that was John Hegarty.
Yeah, and BBH were early on, from a print point of view, were knocked in some circles for the fact that their stuff looked a little bit different, and it had that extra design element that if you look at the likes of Abbott Mead Vickers or even CDP art direction, it wasn't there. Yeah,
they'd sort of grown out of that DDB minimal. It was all about what font you picked, but there was no ornament. Like, do you remember when Hegarty did the things with the little bits in the corner?
Oh yeah.
I remember a lot of people saying, that's like heresy. Why would you put? You don't need those bits on it. Why has he stuck those bits on it?
Because it was 2 pages, when it was a photograph on one page, and it was the type and a headline, body copy, and sometimes a product shot on the right hand side. So effectively, you've got 2 separate pages, very separate pages, because there's bleeding off all round photograph on the left. So it was the corners that held it together as a complete unit. So I never understood that criticism. I thought it was a very nice, elegant solution to hold it all together. Yeah, and no one else was doing it, which made it even better.
So, having interviewed you and covered your advertising stuff, we'll talk about design. Obviously, I've known you about 25 years. One of my best mates, so I might know the answer to some of these questions. So I'm going to have to just wing it and ask you some of these things. So, where were you born? Were you one of those posh kids who grew up in Oxbridge or Cambridge?
Yeah. One of those posh kids. I have got an acquired media accent now. I was.
I bet you used to have a crystal. What do they call it? Crystal cut.
Well, I don't know.
I think they call it that, don't they?
Do you know what?
You talk street now to try and be cool with the kids, didn't you? But I remember the early you were like, Lance Percival or something.
Lance Percival.
Most of the kids will love that.
Yeah, Lance Percival. No one's going to know who he is, and he wasn't particularly
Terry
posh.
Thomas.
Thomas. Yeah, that's a different story. I don't know. I think I've got posher since I've been in advertising.
You have, no?
When I go down to see my dad, then suddenly I realise that I have got a bit posher.
So, in all seriousness, where were you born?
I was born in Greenwich, St Alfred's Hospital, Greenwich.
Yeah.
I lived in Charlton, and my old man had 2 scrap yards, one in Peckham later on, but he had a scrap yard. In fact, my granddad set it up. He had a scrap yard and a rag yard in Camberwell. And when my granddad set it up, my dad used to take the cart out. He used to have a cart without the horse. He didn't have an horse.
He
He
was
had
the
the
horse,
cart
was he?
going from door to door,
Yeah.
getting rag and bone, basically.
So do you think that environment influenced your work in any way?
Well, it did influence me a lot because I used to go, in my teenage years, I used to go down to the scrapyard to work, unloading lorry loads of batteries. See, I know they're very popular now, acid attacks. See, I'll get them. They are quite painful.
Acid attacks?
Yeah. What used to happen is a lorry load of batteries would come in, and you'd have to unload them. You'd be given a brand new set of overalls, a brand new set of gloves, industrial gloves. By the time you stopped unloading the lorry, you look, like those cartoons where someone's caught in an explosion, they got all those tatters on.
Yeah.
That's what you look like.
Really?
And if you happen to get it on your skin, it just melted your skin.
Right.
So it was after doing that for a few summer holidays, I thought, this is not for me. So it did influence me.
So influencing you into not going into that. But did it influence you I'm trying to think what you'd call it, the sort of vibe and the, I don't know, I'm trying to think whether there's anything from that world that you would put into your work going forward.
Well, I used to sort through the scrap just to find, because there were loads of great things in the scrap, like crankcase covers from motorbikes, aluminium. So I used to put them to one side, and of course you'd have all the different logos,
Right.
whether it's Triumph, Matchless, BSA, or whatever. So I know I shouldn't have been. I saw the old man. I'd pick up a broom and pretend I was. He had this obsession with sweeping up. It was a bloody scrapyard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if he saw me standing around or fucking about with these crankcase covers or whatever, you'd have to pretend you were sweeping a scrapyard. I still don't get that now. So there were things in the scrap.
But so the logos appealed to you earlier on?
Yeah.
All those variety of logos on.
I didn't know it at the time. But, I obviously saw some sort of value in them. But I suppose if I had any sort of, if nothing to do with the scrapyard, even though it's related, insofar as, because my old man had a few bob, he bought us a load of comics. So I got a couple of brothers and a sister. We had all we had all the comics.
Right. So
Saturday morning we'd have Beano, Dandy, Beezer, Valiant, terrific,
and you were into
fantastic.
that.
So from if there's any graphic clues to be had from reading comics.
So what would you like about the comics?
They did influence me.
So were you more involved with those comics than your brothers, for example?
Well, to a certain extent, I think they liked them as well. But I think because I was quite good at drawing as a kid, so I just used to copy all the cartoon characters and stuff. But I was also, so again, we did bloody well between us. Christmas, because might get Cluedo, and my brother would get Monopoly or Totopoly, or Minor Million, or Careers, or Go. We had all the Waddington's games,
of them,
and I love them.
What, the design of them?
All the cards and the notes and things inside. Like if you've got something like Go, the travel game. See, I've been on the internet since. I bought them all again, so I've got a full set of Waddington's games now.
Handy.
But what's interesting. So I laugh because it's interesting for me, but it might not be interesting for anyone else. What's interesting? Just about every identity I've ever designed, and I've done a few now. The component parts look like they could be in a Waddington's game. So
what made such an impression on you about these games?
Oh, I don't know, I suppose.
How old would you have been at the time?
Well, right up, from 7 onwards, I suppose.
And was that American design? Were they all...
No, well, Waddington's is Parker, American, you see. Waddington's a British company.
Right.
making.
What was Monopoly? Was that
Monopoly was American.
That's American, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
I think Parker made Waddington's games like Cluedo under license in America,
right, okay.
and Waddington's made things like Risk
Right.
over here, and Monopoly under license. I think I might have got that wrong for any real aficionados, but I don't know. But you say American, it wasn't necessarily everything. When I was a kid, everything was influenced by American. American was real cool then, so I suppose it was I started watching the telly from a very early age, 3 or 4 onwards. I can remember TV programs from when I was 3, and everyone wanted to emulate Americans. I don't know whether it's the influence after the war. They had all the money. They had all the flash cars.
They felt like they were a bit further ahead, didn't they? And richer, and
that's
all their programs all seems like they're in colour.
It was all happening there. Because even you take that, I really am boring myself now, but I think it was Dickie Henderson's show. I think it was Dickie Henderson.
Everyone who listens to
no
this
one
likes
will know.
Dickie
Yeah,
Henderson.
ask your mum and dad about Dickie Henderson. You can see there was a British show, but they were trying to ape American shows.
Right.
Everything was influenced by furniture, the lot. So I don't know what we're talking about American
Well, I
stuff.
suppose so. Where we end up is you're heavily influenced by America because those are all your influences. And if that was all influenced by America,
yeah, and the 50s. By the time that films were coming around on the box, you were probably seeing in the early 60s. You were seeing 1950s films. So again, if I think about. You ain't asked me this question, but I'm telling you the answer
Go on,
anyway.
give me the answers and I'll
this is nothing to do with design.
questions.
It's more to do with advertising. He said, "No, this is only occurring to me for the first time. I know I like 50s inspired stuff, but like when I worked on the Vauxhall Cavalier, that was all based
it's
on
all
a little.
American,
No, in 1988, that was at the time the biggest UK car launch for the Vauxhall Cavalier. And I based that whole story about a little kid watching the TV and seeing some show about a car of the future. And that was all based in the 50s. But
in America?
No, it was actually it was a British show, but it was a British show inspired by America. It was an American concept car. So
what was that the answer to, by the way?
No, it wasn't really an answer, was it?
Okay, I was going to slot a question in, but I couldn't follow the...
No. Don't know. I'm very old. I'm sorry.
So, are we agreed then that a lot of your biggest influences in design are probably American, albeit that they've come through Britain, reinterpreted in America, or not?
No.
Okay.
You started this American
Go on,
thread.
let's
I
go through
didn't.
it. Let's follow this theme through.
But then again, I was trying to make sense of it insofar as, of course, everything in the 50s and early 60s was influenced by America, and late 60s actually with the old space race and stuff. But I had a really good answer to your question just now, and then I've forgotten what the question was. What was the question? Are most of your design influences American? Was the initial one. Where you've got this from, I don't know.
I'm just listening to what you're saying and trying to put 2 and 2 together.
No, not really.
The games, well, I'll give you my argument of why you are, and you can disagree. So,
I've just remembered now.
The comics are all English, were they? Apart from any American?
I used to buy American comics as well.
Okay, so I'm scoring that one for me. That you're influenced by American.
I missed that one out.
Okay.
Harvey Comics. So I'd Richie Rich, Casper, Little Lotta.
American.
But obviously Batman.
And then all the games
Marvel
that you loved were Parker. A lot of them were Parker.
Mainly Waddingtons.
But wasn't that doing Parker games?
That's right.
It's good to get all this detail.
But at the same time...
People love this sort of detail.
They do, don't they? I can hear people yawning now. At the same time, Cluedo was my favourite design.
American.
Very British.
Oh, is it Cluedo?
Yeah. They call it Clue over there, don't they? Cluedo, British.
Right.
Yeah, so
you're sort of mid-Atlantic sort of influence.
Yeah. So we've dumped the American bit.
Yeah, let's move on from the American bit. So it's funny, when I was thinking about this, I had a little theory, which I'll float by you, which is that good designers and art directors can operate in a number of styles, and they take themselves, the individual, out of the equation, right? So they do this, and then they do that. But really great art directors or designers have their own style.
Oh, well, yeah, I'll get that.
So, which hadn't really occurred to me before.
No,
so, for example, you know, if you think of Bob Gill, Bradbury Thompson, Paul Rand, Alan Fletcher, Brown John, you think you know their stuff straight away, but there's not. But it's a sort of weird, counterintuitive thing, because on the one level you're supposed to do different things that aren't you, aren't you? But I remember going to a Paul Rand talk, and someone said to him, who's probably my favourite designer, someone said to him, "Aren't you worried that your stuff is all a bit samey or something like that?" And he was really irritable. I went, "No, not at all." He went, "I'm me. I like what I like, and probably other people like different things, so it'll come out different from others." And he was like totally unapologetic. Said, "No, I want to do things that I like." And obviously, your stuff looks like your stuff.
It does on a design front now, because obviously you know me from an advertising world more than you know me from a design world, ish. Although you know everything I've done.
You seem so similar in both instances.
But really, because if you think about advertising, as you were saying that, I was thinking, right, okay, from a
design, I'm talking about.
From a design point of view, I do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I generally don't take on any jobs that I don't want to do. And so they're done on my terms. From an advertising point of view, and of course, you know, throughout my advertising life, if I was working on Nike or BT, they should look completely different, or Wrangler, or Heineken, or you know, it's funny though. At the same time, when I worked at BBH, my stuff looked like BBH stuff. Yeah. And when I worked at Lowe's, it looked a bit more like Lowe's stuff. You know, so.
But that was the early you.
That's true.
I suppose I'm thinking more, particularly having gone through the book, which we'll get to in a minute, and I suppose what I'm saying is, generally, if someone said to me, "Your stuff looks like your stuff," I'd take that as a bit of a slap in the face. But when I think about it, that the really good people, their stuff looks like theirs. I've listed those 6 people off the top, which I haven't really considered before, because you're supposed to be some sort of chameleon who's 1 minute is doing some minimal thing and the next minute
until you mentioned it, I hadn't considered it. And do you know, when you were telling me your theory, I was feeling better about myself.
Well, that was the
first
I said it.
The first thing that came to mind was that when everyone says, "Oh, yeah, you do that stuff, don't you?" You know, I think, no, I can do other stuff too, mate. So I'll get it. I'll get that.
But I'm saying that's really good.
And now I feel better about doing the same thing over and over. Which I'd like to think I do different stuff within my world.
But I think that is. I mean, I think also it's sort of embracing that. I heard you say something like, and I was trying to remember what it was earlier. It was something like people, and I'm sure you'll have better words than this, but it's like people have put me in a particular box, but I really like it in this box. Something like that.
Cool, I'm brainier than I think
it was
sometimes.
Like
yeah, it's bloody good. I can't remember saying it.
But what I'm saying is there's a sort of almost as if that's bad. And what I'm saying is all the really good people that I could think of, they do their thing. They're bigger than their problem. The really good ones, the great ones.
Well, so, I'd like to be one of the good ones, and so I'll take that. I think it's down to the fact, certainly on the design front, it's down to the fact that I only choose to do the stuff I choose to do. I've never said, "Oh, it's my career as a designer."
That's true. Yeah,
it's not my career. I'm an advertising man who likes doing designy things. So it's a bit like art direction. And if I do stuff that I want to do, then I can do whatever I like. So even if clients come to me and they say, "Here, Mark, will you ever go at that?" Yeah, but only if you give me a free hand. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Yeah. So, but I don't do that with advertising because I genuinely would like to think that I answer an advertising problem with the right solution for that particular client, rather than trying to. My sensibilities are going to leak onto everything, and you're better off giving me something. I was going to say you're better off giving me something funny, but not necessarily. I used to like doing stylish stuff too. I used to like doing something, more sophisticated art direction, as well as the bloodier stuff that I tend to veer towards when I'm designing things for myself, because I prefer the unsubtle to the subtle. Generally, that's my personal preference. And I think I can do subtle if you ask me to.
But it's interesting because I've heard you talk a lot about certain designers or pieces of design that you like, and they're not like things that you would do. Yeah, and it's interesting that. So, for example, when you did what were you, president or chairman of Creative Circle?
I was president of Creative Circle.
President. So when you appointed Paul Belford to do the first annual, he did a lovely, very minimalist. There was an enormous amount of work in there, in retouching particularly. But it was like all super minimal. And you have described yourself as a maximalist or something like that, rather than a minimalist. But it's funny because you have a good appreciation for that stripped back thing, but you don't often.
Yeah, sure. I love the best of Paul Belford stuff. I love the best of your stuff. One of my favourite designers when I was growing up and learning who designers were, I loved Alexei Bodovich's layouts. I do like, if it's good, I like it. It doesn't matter what style it is, as long as it's good. Obviously in my mind, whether it's good. So I can appreciate people doing other things, but I just wouldn't choose to do it if I've got a blank piece of paper and a pen. See, I'm racking my brain now I think almost every design job I've ever done has got a very bloody element to it, out of choice.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing that, and I go to great pains. I think I operate just like anyone like Paul Belford might do, or you, sweating over something, going to great lengths to make something as bloody as possible, as opposed to refining it and making it as elegant as possible.
I wonder why that is. I don't know what that is.
I don't know. There's no answer to that.
I'm just
obviously
trying to link all these things back to. Is it comics? Is it this thing? Or
well, again, you're talking about influences earlier, and when you were trying to show me the American influence, which I buy in part. I used to think, well, my old man used to take me down to Billy Smart Circus on Blackheath, or Chipperfield, whoever turned up there, and that was very influential. I used to love circuses. I used to love them. I used to love the type. I used to love the show. I used to love clowns. I used to love the animals. The graphics, the programs, the all the dolls and things that you used to buy.
I suppose
it's great. The colour.
It's like, rather than bloody, I'd say it's like joyful. It's like very exuberant and happy.
Yeah, I'll take that. Because.
But so the circus reference is a good one.
Yeah,
it seems very upbeat, happy. In fact, which is
relatively. I'm not trying to insult myself here. Relatively unsophisticated. If the things that I do are not enjoyed and understood by the average 8-year-old, I think that maybe I'm being a little bit too highbrow.
Well, that's a good discipline.
What happened was I did a talk at Kinsale year before last. Niels Leonard was the headline speaker. He watched my talk while he was waiting to get on stage. He brought his kids along.
Right.
And it's one of the best talks I've ever done, and one of the talks that I've enjoyed doing most, because he had these young kids in the front row, and they were killing themselves laughing, and they were making me laugh, and everyone was laughing because of it. And I thought, I never knew, I know that I've got childlike sensibilities, but I never realised that kids would actually like my talks and like seeing some of the pictures that I put up.
Yeah.
And it was a joy to see them enjoying it. But only for the same reason that your average Sun reader enjoys some of their best headlines. We can all be a little bit too clever sometimes, whether it's design, advertising, or whatever, and talk to ourselves. But your average punters, I think. I'm going to tell a lie now.
Go on.
It's very popular nowadays, selling a lie like the truth. I was going to tell you that more people watch Mrs. Brown's Boys than Fleabag.
Right. Must be better then.
Must be better. It's a lie. I don't know what the stats are.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that. But at the same time, I'm not saying. I'm not saying.
No.
Yeah, I'm the Mrs. Brown's Boys of advertising and design, because that'd be the last nail in my coffin.
So I wonder. I don't want to get too psychological, but I wonder what is driving. Because it's a weird thing when you work on something and you refine it, and I don't know whether refine's the right word, but you keep more iterations to get it to where you want to be. So some people will be stripping back stuff. And what's leading you to where you're going? If you know, is it sort of fun, or is it? If you can understand what that question means.
That stripping back thing. I know what that bit means. That stripping back thing, and it is refining, but rather than stripping back, I'm tagging things on to it.
Sometimes you're building up layers.
Yeah, not in a way that makes it more complicated. I don't think.
No.
It's very hard to judge your own work. Yeah. Really hard to judge your own. But I don't think it's to make it more complicated. I'm doing it to make it more multi-layered. Like there's more gifts
richer
in there.
Yeah.
So you can look at something. You look at a little bit harder, and you'll find something else. There's another strand that goes over there. There's another layer. See, I know you're not talking about specific things in my book at the moment. That's what I'm here trying to flog my book. Yeah. But it's generally, I don't do an identity, and I don't do enough identities insofar as I really like doing them. But I don't do an identity and stop and say that's that done. What I like to do is I like to add layers to it in a way that looks like it's been around forever. And it's got like the wealth of the last 25 years worth of input into that identity. It's might be a brand new, fresh identity, but there's just so much stuff. It looks like someone's opened an archive of something that was designed 25 or 50 years ago. Yeah. There's just so much stuff that goes with it, and rewarding stuff. It looks like there's been a journey within.
So that's stuff. A really specific thing, and I can't think of who else does that. Where's that come from, do you think?
Well, again, if you open a Waddington's game,
one of the boards, you're trying to get to.
I used to look
at
Monopoly's bloody great. You look at the pieces on Monopoly, especially if you know the history of Monopoly, and the players look like that because I think when it was being developed, the bloke who
you talking about Cluedo or Monopoly?
No, Monopoly, because
the players look like what? No, they're the little thimbles.
They're not counters.
Yeah.
They're
wasn't it a charm bracelet?
They come from a charm bracelet. Yeah. So they're bits of a charm bracelet, and I didn't know that when I was a kid. But I think, why is that a racing car? And why is that a top hat? And why is that an iron?
Yeah. It's a real random bunch of stuff.
And I remember as a kid, again, I didn't know what an identity was. I didn't know anything about graphic design, but I used to try and make up company names for the individual bits and say, the Top Hat blah company, yeah. And then I'd do some little drawings of what the Top Hat company might look like they had a history and they were 3-dimensional, and there's people who work for them and all the rest of it. I suppose that, on almost every identity I've done, that's what I've tried to do. Yeah, it's like even the book, Unleash the Power of Purity. It's not just a book of me stuff. I've tried to pretend it's a self-help book with some evangelical person trying to sell you this different way of living your life. Like it is a self-help book when really it's a how I've helped myself book. It is a joke. Like most of the things I do.
But there's a structure, there's an idea and a structure that's different that's applied. It's not, here's a bunch of my stuff.
No, it gave me, because otherwise,
dates when I did
it would have been a disparate load of stuff with dates on it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But it gave me a skeleton to hang everything on. Yeah. So it might be all different, the elements within it, but it's all hanging on the same skeleton.
Yeah.
So I like doing that. See, I like, even when I'm. What's great about? I love being a commercials director. I used to love being an art director in an agency. My favourite bit was given a blank piece of paper, and it's like a puzzle trying to come up with an idea that's going to solve a problem, and solve it really bloody fast and surprise people. I used to love that. It was the best competition you could ever enter. And design's like that for me as well, insofar as I didn't realise I was a designer, if you like, whatever a designer is versus an art director, until I became a commercials director. Because when I became a commercials director, then suddenly there was lots of other decisions to make, like what does the wardrobe look like? I know we do that as creatives, but generally the director that you chose would have a big hand in that stuff. What does the set look like? What does the wardrobe look like? What does every element in the commercial look like? And because I like that, creating worlds, I like to think if I design a set, and I've gone beyond my normal remit as a director, I suppose, because I like designing the set a lot of the time. I rely on really skillful people to help me put it together, but I'll have a really strong idea. I might design the wallpaper that's stuck on the set, but also I like to think that if there's a cabinet, that back when there was budgets, I would have that cabinet made to my design in the set. If you open the drawer, what would be inside the drawer? So one of the things in the book is there was a scene in a commercial that I'd shot for Brill Cream, and it was about this fictional town called Bad Barnet. And I think it's a 1.5 second shot, 1 3/4 second shot, really quick shot where a hero walks into a barber's shop, and there's a customer in there, and he's reading a newspaper, and he looks up from the newspaper. All in 1.5 seconds. It's just a reaction shot. But I couldn't help myself. I had to design the newspaper, shoot photographs for it, put adverts in it. It was a complete newspaper, because that, it's my role. It was my role to create this town called Bad Barnet, but to go to that degree, just gave me a lot of joy, and it gave the whole thing an integrity.
But it's interesting you say you didn't feel like you were a designer until you were out of being a creative or advertising. Obviously, you're still in advertising, you're shooting commercials, but because before then, you would have designed, I think, your own clothes at that point.
Yeah.
Your own wallpaper.
Yeah.
Cast and shot pictures of you in it. Frames. A whole bunch of, which is, what I'm saying is most art directors do ads and that's it. They don't have views on such a wide range of stuff. I'm trying to think what else you would have done at the time. But it seemed like there was quite a big world of things that you were, your own furniture?
Yeah, that's right. Do you know, at the time, it's
your own
truth.
Range of football cards?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just
at
thinking
the time, here's how deep I was thinking about it. That's me fucking about.
Yeah. Well, what you didn't feel legitimate.
That's not. I felt legitimate as a designer when I won some design awards by mistake, and people started calling me a designer. I thought, really?
What do you mean you won them by mistake?
Well, insofar as I can't actually remember entering. I tell a lie. I entered. When I did the Blink Identity, I was working over at Blink production company, and James Studholme, the boss of Blink, said, "Do you want to have a go at doing the Identity?" Because he knew I was an art director and I liked fucking about designing things. And I said, all right. I wasn't experienced in doing that. I'd done a couple as favours for friends before. He gave, I said, look, I'll only do it if you give me a free hand, because otherwise it just feels like work. I'll do anything that doesn't feel like work, being a bit on the lazy side. If it feels like work, I'll generally avoid it. And I entered that for not for the Grand Award, for the New York festivals. And then it went on to win the Grand Award for design at the New York festivals. Now, I must have considered the world of design just to enter it. I didn't know how important that was. I really didn't. I'd heard of New York festivals. We used to, me and Chris, when we had our agency, we used to enter commercials for that. But I won this big award there, and unbeknownst to me, that had put me on some chart in Design Week magazine. I didn't buy Design Week because I wasn't a designer. Yeah. It's only when someone phoned me up and said, congratulations. I said, what for? He said, well, you're in the top 20 most awarded design companies in the UK.
And you never considered it?
I didn't know that. that all happened by mistake.
So did that help? Did you give you, in your own head, legitimacy? Think, well, I suppose I'm a kind of designer as well.
Do you know, I don't think about stuff that hard, really, because I started considering that, and I thought the honest answer is I never think about anything that hard. I don't think like, oh, I thought, oh, I'm in this world of design. That's what I thought. Isn't it funny? That happened by mistake. It made me laugh. I looked at the chart. It said Mark Denton Design. That's what they called me. I didn't have a company called Mark Denton Design. So what I did, I just picked this phone up straight away. I phoned my accountant up and said, I want to start a company called Mark Denton Design. Just because they put me on the chart called Mark Denton Design. I set up a company and I thought, wouldn't it be a fun game? It's all about having a laugh to a certain extent. And then having a lot of misery in the middle of that, the agony of actually putting stuff together.
Yeah.
But that's a different story altogether. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I kept in the chart and I call myself Mark Denton Design, but I don't actually want any clients, any proper clients, only clients that I want. So I designed myself an identity that I got a stock shot of a baboon bearing its arse.
Was that your favourite? Which baboon was it? I remember you once said it to me.
No, it wasn't a mandrill.
A mandrill, yeah.
Yeah, mandrill's my favourite monkey.
Was it your favourite or your fourth favourite monkey?
No, the mandrill was my favourite.
It's unusual to have a fourth favourite monkey.
It just happened to be a baboon. So I do like monkeys. I'm going to put it out there. I like monkeys.
You might as well come out with it.
In fact, I was doing a talk the other day. This one at the what was it called? Fail Better talk over at NAD. I'm saying, I did this identity with a monkey wearing a Napoleon hat, and he said it's a chimpanzee. Someone in the audience. It's my first heckler. That's a chimpanzee. That's a great ape. That's not a monk. I said, look, got David Attenborough in the front row here. So he gave me a lot of fodder. I really enjoyed that. Get me first monkey-related heckler. That was very good. Monkey's arse. I thought, and underneath it had a little line that said the symbol of quality. I thought, if any clients can get past that, I'm the right man.
So that was the Mark Denton Design.
Yeah, and I designed the
monkey's arse with the symbol of quality.
Yeah, I designed the header on the letterheading and on the envelopes and stuff like that. That was based on the tailgate of my old man's scrapyard lorry. So he had a scrap lorry which had this really great chunky sans serif typeface with a extruded drop shadow painted on it, and I used that as the template as the heading for the letterhead and the website and everything. And it worked a bloody treat because there wasn't a queue of people.
Did you get any? Did you get any?
Do you know what I did a big identity for MPIX. Actually, it was a photo library. So I did a big identity for them. There's a couple of other bits and pieces. A few other people came forward and wanted identities. I did one for Nice Biscuits, post-production company. I did one for a Large Evil Corporation. So suddenly people from Blink's world, they could see how visible the Blink identity was because people were walking around Soho. The carrier bags stood out. I remember going into a shop with a carrier bag, and within one journey, I had two people saying "cool bag." You don't get that very often with carrier bags. Yeah. So suddenly I had a few people in related industries, whether it's an animation company, Large Evil Corporation, or Nice Biscuits post production. I did an identity years ago for Godman as well. So production companies, that sort of thing, they were coming to me, but there weren't many clients outside of that who were coming to me for design jobs, which suited me because as I said, I only want to do the stuff I want to do. You only want to do
what you want to do. So were there any, just dragging you into the world of advertising again, but were there, of your previous bosses, some very well-known good art directors like John Hegarty and Alan Waldy, did they influence you or did you learn anything from them? You sort of can't say no, I suppose. John Hegarty's a sir, Alan Waldy's dead, but...
No, I was only over at Lowe's for 18 months, I think, just under 18 months. I wasn't there long.
Did you work much with Waldy?
Well, no, I didn't work with him at all. He he was a very strange and interesting bloke, and he used to wander into our office and say, look at an ad and say, "Oh, you've shortened those descenders." And I think, well, what are you on about? And that would be it, and then he'd
Was
walk
that a
out.
joke, or was that?
No, I think it would be a statement designed to rattle inexperienced art directors. And no, I just think, what are you on about, mate? I haven't shortened those descenders. They come like that. BBH though, that did. I learned a lot there. I learned how to be an art director.
So before that, you were obviously Leo Burnett.
Yeah, and I was a visualiser at Leo Burnett for most of the time.
So you hadn't done much art direction by the time you got there?
Do you know, I was only thinking about this the other day. I was only an art director for just over a decade.
Were you really?
It's just bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, because I still, to use a very popular phrase, I identify as an art director.
Yeah.
And, but it was just over a decade. It seemed like a long time at the time. But... So
what did you learn at BBH then?
Well,
how was that? Because at the time, when did you get there? So you got there when it was...
It was
80, one of the best.
Yeah, it was 80...
2 or 3 agencies in the country.
86, I think. 86 I was there. So I must have arrived I was there for about just over 2 years. So 84.
And what did you pick up there then?
Well, I was daunted by it. I didn't... it was Chris who wanted me over there. I wasn't offered the job by John. He was very supportive once I got there, but it was Chris who really pushed for me to be over there because I didn't have... They were very famous for the look of their work, and the art direction was impeccable and groundbreaking. It was different from everyone else's. So they were doing their own thing. So coming from the studio, being a visualiser, only having a limited amount of experience as an art director at a very junior art director at Leo Burnett, I was aware that I was only at BBH because Chris pushed for me to be there because he liked me storyboards. Because my portfolio was mainly full of storyboards. I used to write my own scripts. Because I was a visualiser, I knew how to break down a script into a storyboard. So I had a portfolio full of laminated storyboards, really, which wasn't the ideal portfolio to get into BBH when they were the kings of art direction at the time. So I was aware that I really had to pedal hard. I used to stay there, Saturday night sometimes. I mean, luckily I teamed up with someone as mad as me in Chris because we'd be there, 11:30 Saturday night. I'll be pouring, working on an Asda campaign or whatever. I'll be poring over the guard books, just trying to get a hang of how to do art direction.
So at the time, that was probably the designiest of ad agencies. Possibly Yellowhammer as well was quite designy.
Yeah.
But so what did you take from that, if anything, as a designer?
Just the craft of it.
What, just more of appreciation for type, font,
finish,
colour, everything?
Yeah, so I knew that, I've cast it in mind back now, so very popular typeface in BBH was Bodoni. They used to use that on a lot of stuff, like the Haymarket stuff, and then you'd have Scotch New Roman for the St Ivel shape stuff, and then I think it was Levi's trade ads. They used Clarendon Bold Condensed, which I hadn't really seen that before because I was a visualiser. So I thought, bloody hell, I like that, and I've been kind of using it ever since.
So that was, in a way, it sounds like this first time you got really into the details of design.
Because I was about drawing people's layouts up and colouring them in. That was my main job, and doing my own cartoony stuff whenever I could, try to get my work through at Leo Burnett and failing most for the best part. So BBH really did open my eyes to the world of design, if you like, back when there was that divide between design and art direction.
And would it be, because John was quite, what's the word, harsh? He wasn't like a...
He was a hard taskmaster.
There's a hard taskmaster is a better...
Do you know, everyone seemed happy in the department.
Yeah.
I felt under pressure.
Did you learn because you were a bit scared? Or
I was fucking petrified.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I wanted to know.
Oh, I was shitting myself. Because I genuinely thought I shouldn't be there. Because I thought...
So you tried harder because of it.
Yeah. So I thought, I've got to get the hang of this stuff. So when a mechanical would come in before the age of computers, and I could think my way around a mechanical, because I used to be a pace-up artist before I was a visualizer. So a mechanical would come in. Of course, an ad, a double page spread or any ad would run in, might be a dozen different or even more different magazines. So generally what you do is you design your ad, as you know, and then you leave it up to the studio to do all the ad apps for all the different shapes. I do a trace for every single publication that went in there. So I did a trace. And I think, John Egerty came in once. John came in and said, "What are you doing that for? The studio's meant to do that." I think he secretly liked the fact that I was doing that, though. And it felt like that detailed stuff was my... I had to do that to be accepted in this world of just precise, considered art direction stroke design.
So there's one question that occurs to me, that if you're a young person listening to this at college, so what I find lots of particularly art directors do is they look at, and I probably did the same, they'll look at what's won awards currently or last year, and then they'll do things in that vein. Whereas what you seem to have done, almost from the get-go, is to look into your life and what you actually like. Not actually what's winning awards, but take what you like. So it might be some Harry Worth titles from 1964, a circus poster from this. It's like not many people are confident enough to do that. Whereas it's easier to follow what you think is winning awards rather than what touches you. So this is all the lead up for the question. So how do you take stuff from the past and not have your stuff feel old-fashioned? Because your stuff doesn't feel old-fashioned; it feels the moment. But
I'm glad you say that, because
the reference points are old.
I've had a few people say to me, "You do that retro stuff, don't you, mate?" But I'm glad someone with a bit of insight like yourself could see that it's an interpretation.
No, it's not. There's bits of it.
On.
It was like and there's obviously some sort of more method to it, but when you put them together, they feel vibrant and energetic, and they're not pastiches of a old style, but the elements in there are sometimes taken from things from another time.
Well, I'll be the first to admit it, but certainly from a design point of view, because I only do what I want to do. I only do my favourite stuff, and a lot of my favourite stuff is rooted in the past. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. But it's not a slavish, as you say, it's not a slavish copy of what... I'm not trying to replicate anything that's happened in the past. It is... It's just an influence. It's just a flavour, and I think it's warmer. And I think if you boil it down, a lot of the time, it's the kind of things, the way that I design the elements in a set or even a costume or something like that. A lot of the time, I'm not saying it hasn't got some extra frills on it. A lot of the time, it's the kind of thing that you'd have in a New Yorker cartoon or a cartoon. When you boil it down to the essence of what a psychiatrist's room. He's got a couch, he's got a certificate on the wall, he's got a bloke in a leather chair, he's got a kind of Persian rug there. I think, and a lot of the period references are in there because they are kind of not the simplest interpretation of a chair, but it's not. It's a chair. It's not some kind of modern interpretation of a chair. Now that doesn't make any sense to me, but it's just it's the elements of a cartoon. See, on the front of my book, I've got this ranting, red-faced loony in front of a load of microphones, and the microphones are not microphones; they're hairbrushes tied to broomsticks. Now, that's a cartoon. That could be a New Yorker cartoon. I don't know what the caption would be, but if you just imagine what the layout of that looked like, there's no there's no. It's funny because even though I like maximalist stuff, there's a minimal quality
the
about
core
it at the
of it
same
is
time.
incredibly minimal. It's like, yeah.
You know, there's no other elements in there apart from the ones telling the story there.
Yeah. But on the stylistic thing, I can remember you giving me a slightly different answer to that question. So, for example, if you take Nike, so when everyone was doing spaced out, airy-fairy type, you crushed it all together. It was overlapping.
Yeah.
It looked weird at the time because that's not what people were doing. That was exactly the opposite of what people were doing. So if you look back for your reference points, you're more likely to find something that's distinctive today because other people aren't doing that. Other people are looking in wallpaper. I'm trying to think what are the cool mags now, you know, or they would be looking for in last year's D&AD. Everybody would be looking, fishing in the same pool.
Yeah.
So if you look back further, but it just strikes me that your references are more. It's not so much that it's, you know, not last year. It's more that they're personal. There's something you genuinely feel something for.
Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that. But you were talking about an element there where if, you know, when the rest of the world's doing a certain thing, I know you feel the same. You don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
You want to do the opposite.
Well, the thing we were both talking about last week is this trend to repeat the headline 20 times, you know, or whatever that thing's called, where you take the text, because obviously most of the time you're trying to think, how do we make this simple enough that this pings out? Whereas there's this trend of, how do we make it look, the opposite of what you should do is, how do we make it look like a piece of wallpaper that you don't want to read? You just keep repeating it, and then it's just a texture. So then you don't have to read it. It's like an odd thing, but it's become,
it's a
since
trend.
You mentioned it, in fact, I think you were the first person to mention it. All I see now is that, where the headline's repeated 10 times.
It's a trend. You know, I like to see trends, and I've always liked fashion, and I like to see people following trends. But generally, that's when you see a trend occurring, that's an indication that you should be doing something different.
Something different from it, yeah.
And that's what's good about trend. And it's also, or taking the piss out of the trend, or just giving it a little twist. Because you're right, if it was like, you know, the more letter space type that was popular when we were doing the Nike stuff. I don't mean to say that I didn't see it elsewhere, you know, insofar as there was a lot of magazines, trendy magazines, doing that crunched up type. And I thought, I remember that from the 70s, actually. And I thought, that's bloody good. We'll have that for Nike because no one else in that category is doing that.
Yeah. So it makes you stand out more because you're...
Yeah, I'm the same as everyone else. I'm influenced by stuff. And I think, you know, insofar as I borrow from all over the place, same as everyone does. But, you know, hopefully what comes out the end of the sausage machine is something that smells a bit of me, and not just the places where I've nicked the ideas from.
So did you see today I heard on one of the podcasts I was listening to, they were talking about the new Facebook logo. And there's a new Facebook logo come out today for the corporate Facebook. And they went, it's really clever because it uses capital letters because it's more formal, because it's the holding company, and they use upper and lower. It seems upper and lower case because that's the... You think it couldn't be a more basic thing. It seems such a low level. It's like when you see on Twitter, a few people recently have put out these things where it will be Yves Saint Laurent, you know, lots of fashion, Burberry. Have you seen those logos where it's what they were?
Yes.
And they would be very idiosyncratic, a bit weird, quite ornate. And then what they are now is they're all in Helvetica or Gotham. Yeah. And the thing that distinguishes them apart is they use slightly different weights from each other. But it's almost like the opposite of what a logo should. I know that you won't like that trend because they're all the same and they're all devoid of any personality. No, you're dead right. They look simple, but they have no personality at all. That seems to have been the process. How do we strip away any distinctiveness or personality?
Yeah,
which is the other design trend.
It's not for me, but I'm fully aware that I'm out doing my stuff. It's not. I know what I do is not everyone's cup of tea, and it's maybe it's a very, very few people's cup of tea from a design point of view. I'm probably like you, insofar as, don't you want to please yourself first?
Yeah.
I always want to please myself first, and then if someone else likes it, that's a bonus. Obviously, if the client likes it, that's a big bonus. But if someone else likes it, that's a bonus. Advertising is different design, or my personal design stuff, insofar as it's a bit like family fortunes, isn't it? You really want to come up with the
trying to think how that game's played.
Yeah, I'm going to say I've mentioned family fortunes. I can't remember how it bloody works.
Which
now.
Is that one? Is that the one where it says
many
people said
yeah, this many people? You
right.
want to have the biggest answers, don't you? Where most of the general public would have said blah. You want the big scores.
Yeah.
And so in advertising, you want to
in terms of understanding.
Well,
so
you want to do not just
understanding,
understanding, awareness, likability, all the rest of it. I know Dave Trott goes on about you don't necessarily have to have the punters like the advertising for it to be effective, and I get that completely. But you want it to resonate somehow, don't you? I would always choose to be liked if possible, even though it's bloody hard to set out to do that. But you want to touch as many of the target audience as possible, and get them. Well, you don't want them to just like things.
Yeah,
you just want them to
blog
buy
post
your tin of beans or whatever.
On liked, and you think, why would you not want the public, to like your things? It's an odd thing, but it's never really.
But at the same time, you take the digital world where everyone seems to get excited about just getting a load of likes and not necessarily a load of sales.
Yeah, it's odd.
Then I can see how worthless that is. It's not being liked by itself hasn't got a lot of value. I think even though I'm in this relatively posh world of advertising, and I'm a little bit further away from where I come from, I think most punters like simplistic stuff that makes them smile, as opposed to really worthy, sophisticated stuff that might get someone saluting because it's got a particularly elegant typeface that's beautifully kerned. I like the craft in everything. I admire the craft in everything. And the more I get invited onto design juries, I'm in awe of a lot of people that I meet because they're doing stuff on a different level to me. They're looking at stuff that, it's just like, it's invisible to me. Yeah. I've tried very hard to make my stuff look how I want it to look, but it's, I'm fully aware in some scenarios I'm standing there with my sledgehammer and they've all got rapiers in their hands.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough.
You
put me in a fight, I'll have the sledgehammer any time over a rapier.
I mean, it just makes me laugh because it reminds me, I love pentagram stuff. One of my favourite. But I once went to we had Seconda as a client at CDD, and the guy had given Pentagram the logo design, a new logo, and we went over for the presentation. And my memory is, I might be slightly exaggerating it, is that we went through so many reference points, Ben Nicholson pictures, this thing, that thing. And then after about an hour and a half, they sort of unveiled the thing. And it was about time, circumference of the earth, blah, blah, blah. There'd been all these really high-level things. And to me, what it looked like they'd coloured in the O in Seconda so that there wasn't a counter in it. It was just solid. And that was it. But it'd taken about an hour and a half to get there. And they'd used such highbrow things about time coming round again and circles and the globes. It'd gone on and on. You couldn't wait for it to end. And you think, oh, they've coloured in the O. It doesn't seem an hour and a half's worth of build-up. But so I don't know whether... It's difficult to know whether that's just on another level or whether that's what you have to do to sell that in when you then give them a big
I don't know.
check.
This is all stuff that I have to scrub around for because I really don't think that hard.
No.
Or I generally, if there's a advertising or any kind of visual problem to crack, I get my pen out, got a bit of paper. You wiggle the pen around until something falls out that makes you
very
smile.
Quick at that. Yeah.
And then you think, oh yeah, I'd like. It's if I think, cool, that's worth getting someone to make that. If I want a photographer to shoot it, or I want to see that real in the real world, then it's up to a standard.
Then it's finished.
Yeah. So there's no deeper thinking than that, really.
Right, I've got a quick fire round here.
Go on in.
You don't have to explain these, but you can if you want. And it's your favourites, right? So just whatever springs to mind. Font.
Clarendon Bold Condensed. That's an easy one.
Colour.
Tartan.
Tartan is your favourite colour. You can have that.
Well,
you
there's
don't
a
have
lot
to
of
think
colour.
about it.
Depending on what tartan. Yeah, Black Watch Tartan actually my favourite.
Photographer.
Oh, photographer.
There's loads of them. Just whoever springs to mind is the answer.
Yeah. I can't tell you. I like too many photographers.
Illustrator.
Oh, that's bloody hard as well. I like too many illustrators. Well, it's one of my favourites.
Go
Basil Wolverton.
Don't know him. Basil Wolverton. We'll look him up. Designer.
That's bloody hard as well, isn't it? I like Bradbury Thompson.
Bradbury Thompson.
Yeah.
Toy. I think I know the answer to
Toy.
this.
Johnny Seven.
Yep.
OMA.
Ad.
Advert. It used to be Lego Kipper. I like Cooey, Mr. Shifter, PG Tips.
Do you really?
Yeah.
As your top, as your mate.
Yeah, I think
you
so.
Don't have to.
Funny.
TV show.
TV show now. What, a modern one?
Whatever your favourite one, whatever springs.
Oh
to
yeah,
mind.
do you know at the moment, and it's Stranger Things.
Right. Film.
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. Good. Board game.
That has got to be Cluedo for the look of it, but not the gameplay.
Right.
And probably Risk for the gameplay.
Risk for the game. That's a very precise answer. Chess piece. It's a weird one.
Right,
I
it's
thought
got
you
to be
might
the
have a
look at.
view. It's got to be what?
Well, I suppose it's got to be the night.
Yeah,
Not
I knew
just
you'd have a
because the
view
way
on-
it looks, but also the way it moves as well. It's a little bit alternative, isn't it?
I knew you'd have a view on that, which is why there's not many people you can ask what's their favourite chess piece without getting a weird look back. So which one? The night?
Yeah.
Okay, so the book. So we're going to get round to the book. So why do a book?
Well, the only reason I did a book is because I've been doing these talks for a while now, and just to skip back a little tiny bit because we'd be here all night. I only started doing the talks because the recession hit back in whenever the recession hit.
Yeah.
Just after I'd set up Koi as a production company, and I was getting loads of scripts. I was working back to back. Recession hit. I'd set up a new company, and the phone lines went dead. So I thought, blimey, how am I going to get our rep in the front door? No, she couldn't get in the front door. They barred the doors. I thought, if I start doing talks, then I get in front of an agency. I've got 100 people there. They've got to listen to me for an hour. They can't escape. That's the only reason I started doing talks. As I've done the talks, over 10 years now, as I've done the talks, I got the hang of them, and I'm really enjoying. I was nervous about doing it to start off with.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is because if anybody's seen one of your talks, they'd think, well, of course he does talks. He's born to be on stage and joke around. But I'm guessing, knowing you, that when you first thought, well, let's do some talks, you didn't think, great, bring him on. You weren't sure.
I thought, I fancied doing them, but I wasn't confident in doing them.
Yeah.
It's only because I'd watched a couple of talks. I would have been very daunted when you see someone like David Abbott talk. Think, I could never do that. And it's the truth. I could never have done that. But I saw Malcolm talk, our old mate Malcolm Venville. Yeah. And when he did a talk, I remember, I think it was organised by Creative Review. It was like a mate chatting to his mates.
Yeah.
So it was really easy going. I thought, well, I could give that a go.
Yeah.
I've got, because one of my favourite books, you haven't asked me favourite book yet, but one of my favourite books is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah. Really useful. It's certainly, if you're an advertiser, it's useful anyway. It's a great book. And Dale Carnegie, he also wrote a book on public speaking. In fact, that's what he was trained in. He used to train people doing public speaking, and I read that and I thought, oh, this is a bit, it suddenly made me think, oh, I've got to be formal and I've got to address people in a certain way, and it kind of put me off. It's only when I saw Malcolm's talk I thought, oh, I could just have a chat and go wrong and waffle and go off on a tangent and say, where was I? And as soon as I got that permission, I thought I could have a go. After a couple of them, I thought, oh, I bloody like doing these. And then, later on, I signed up to do some stand-up comedy courses, and they helped, even though I got jobs in and I never completed them, but they helped. And it is like putting on a show. So even though you're trying to tell a story that ultimately, it's a tool. It was a tool to get me scripts. And I thought the best way to get scripts is not go in and to an agency and show them any of my commercials, because that could only put them off. Not because my commercials are crap. It's because you show them a commercial and they say, well, you're just a director. There's loads of good directors, and there are loads of good directors out there. But as soon as you start just having a chat about creative things in general and creative things that I've done, then suddenly you're having a different kind of conversation where people might at the end of it think, oh, that bloke's quite creative. I think I could get on with him. Maybe we should shoot a commercial together. Because even if I show them a really good commercial, they might see a show the week afterwards, forget my one and see the next one. Whereas I think by not showing anything, it kind of potentially enables you to make more of a connection with people.
Yeah. Do you think, I'm presuming now that most jobs you pitch on, people probably, do they know that you were a creative? Because I know people who became directors 10 years after you, and they work with people now, they've got no idea that they started an agency or did anything.
I was working with a creative team the other day, and they said, did you ever work in advertising?
Did they? Yeah.
Yeah, and they said, and well, of course, how would they bloody know? Because I started 43 years ago, so how would they know?
So do you think that's so presumably when you started out doing your talks, you would cover your advertising. It would become aware that you used to be in advertising and you set up an agency. So do you think that was helpful or a hindrance, in the sense that if you're a young team and you think, oh, hang on, he's really good at ideas, started his own agency, he's really successful, would that make them anxious or think, well, that's great because he can help us with ours?
I don't know. I would like to think that when people see my talk, then I know I've gone off on a tangent because you talked about the book.
Yeah. Sorry.
But when people see my talk, they don't think, oh, there's that bloke over there who is inaccessible or is setting himself up to be untouchable in some way, like I'm the big I am. I'd like to think
you're the opposite
that I'm someone who think, oh, bloody hell, he has been doing it a while, but he's just one of us. And when I show my daft ideas that I've developed into finished things in the real world that have led on to other interesting opportunities, when I've done, lost the plot now, haven't I? When I've talked about that stuff, see, I'm trying to regain my composure here.
You're doing it perfectly.
And pretend that I actually know what I said earlier.
Well, you're doing all the hand movements, which is covering it brilliantly. Just not coming through on the
but no one can see
audio.
It. What the fuck was I talking about?
I'll tell you what you're talking about. So
when you do my talks work, I can do this at any
exactly,
point.
But it comes over very well in your talks. See, I like when, because I was at the Malcolm talk that you said, and it was eye-opening for both of us, that because I think before, without going off on too much of a tangent, you think to get up and do a talk, you've got to be one of those people who do talks and be really professional and buttoned down and remember everything and blah, blah, blah. And he was like exactly as he would have been if you'd talked to him an hour before in the pub. And you think, God, that's... And not only was he like that, but actually that was better because you think, and that's what you do. So when you go through, you'll go, right, where was I? What was I talking about? But that comes over as you, rather than you getting lost or messing up, that comes over as you totally in control. I've lost my place. Who cares? Let's have a look. Right, I'm here. So it comes over the opposite of what you would imagine before you do any talks. That's the sort of
Yeah.
would be your biggest fear of doing
Well,
talks that you think,
I was
forget my place.
Believe
but
it
it's
or
good.
not, believe it or not, I've just remembered where I was going with that. But let's park that to one side for the time being. But I remember being when I started off in agencies, Leo Burnett. It was the first time I was invited into meetings when I became a junior art director. So I was in a meeting, and I always felt, because I come from the scrap metal family, I should never have been in advertising. There was all these posh people from universities and stuff, and I've tried to be. Maybe I tried to put a posh voice on. I don't know.
You never got out of that.
I tried to be something else, and it didn't bloody work at all. And so Malcolm's talk. I know we talked a bit about his talk, but it really was a revelation, a complete revelation that you can be yourself in scenarios like that. And what I was remembering earlier was that when I talk about the daft ideas that I've had, that I've realised and turned into real things, rather than set myself up as someone where the audience might think, oh, bloody hell, he's doing something I could never do. He's in a different league, if you like. What gives me a connection with people, because they generally are, the best ideas do appear very simple. So my better ideas look every bit as simple as the very best ideas, I think. I like to think that the audience look at me and say, well, if he can do that, I can. So it just helps that connection again. It's not like, I watched Paul Rand. I don't know whether I was at the same Paul Rand talk that you went to, or I went to see Saul Bass. And as a relatively young bloke, I think, bloody hell, he's up there and I'm down here, and I can't imagine ever being up there. And that's the great Paul Rand, and that's the great Saul Bass. Even though they were both very personable and nice people, I liked them. But it was just felt like a divide that I don't think exists between me and the audience when I do a talk. If you're young and keen, you think, oh, fucking hell, that's just a stupid bloody idea that he's scribbled down. I could do that. I think that's that's, if I've got any essence worth talking about, any kind of successful element that's worth talking about, like putting into a book, it is because I make things rather than just have the stupid idea and park it to one side, and then those things go off and create other opportunities. I think that's what makes me relatively unusual, insofar as I'll do a scribble and I will be compelled to go and buy a load of airbrushes and broomsticks, sellotape the airbrushes to the broomsticks, and pretend that I'm a serious.
Well, I suppose the unusual. I mean, the book is called "Unleash the Power of Puerility," and I think what's quite unusual is, as you describe them, these things that fall out of your pen that are like childish, puerile little jokes, but then taken very, very seriously on how you put it together. So it's not like, so some people may, like David Shrigley, have a sort of puerile idea, and he'll spend seemingly 2 minutes drawing it, putting it out. Whereas you'll do that and then finish it really, really well. Sort of polish it very, very well. So the combination of those two is quite unusual, I think.
Well, because I do it.
Yeah,
naturally, it's hard to say. Oh, I know it's unusual. I don't see when I was researching this book, because again, I don't know if I started telling you or you even asked me why did I do the book in the first place. Yeah. That's why I started talking about the talks.
Got us off track. Because
because once this talk started getting successful and people started paying me for the talks, I'm thinking, right, I've got an asset here. I like doing them. People were paying me to do them. They seem to be going down pretty well. I've been invited, I wouldn't say all over the world, but several different continents, and people have got their wallets out and paid me to do them. I noticed the people on the talk circuit who were getting paid the most amount of money for their talks are the ones who had books. So, it was just like this. It's like a kid would think. I think it's a really simple bloody idea. Oh, right, okay, they've called me Mark Denton Design on that design chart. Wouldn't it be funny if I started a company called Mark Denton Design, and then we'll have a joke of trying to keep in that chart for a while, and who knows, I might even get some proper job. So when I thought, okay, I'm on the talk circuit here, they've all got books, they're getting paid a lot of money. Wouldn't it be funny if I managed to give them I do like a bit of competition. I think, I see if I can up my wages just by bringing a book out. And I was offered, again, the way the old snowball rolls, I was able to get in front of an audience at Sky. And, it's outside of advertising agencies. I've done BBC, Channel 4, ITV, Time. I've done these companies outside, broadcast companies as well, outside of advertising. And then via LinkedIn, because I do like social media. Via LinkedIn, I got approached by someone I didn't know, and they invited me to go and talk over at Promax. And I thought, right, bloody hell. And I looked them up, and I didn't know much about them. It was in Rome, and they paid me a nice amount of money, and they put me up in a posh hotel. And I had a look at where they were putting the talk on, and there was it looked like it smelt of money, and it had a big posh auditorium, and there was, I think, about 700 or 800 people there. And I thought, right, okay, I've got a deadline for that. I'm going to produce a book before I go to Rome. I'm going to take the book with me. And I thought, right, okay, I won't write a lot of copy.
To sell out there?
Yeah, I thought just so I've got a book. I've got a published book.
Yeah.
I've got it. Here it is in my suitcase. I suddenly am at this flash conference doing a talk with a book in my back pocket. Who knows where that might? That's the deep thinking.
Yeah.
There's nothing deeper than that.
Yeah.
And then someone else might, if I talk about the talk of the book on the stage, then someone in that audience might say, "Oh, he's got a book out. He must be one of those very expensive speakers that we must fly to some exotic foreign place."
Yeah.
That's the thinking that goes behind it. I thought, well, okay, there won't be a lot of words in it. I've got loads of pictures already. Let's just raid the archives, slap them together. I'll write the copy over the weekend. I could do it in a weekend. Never written a book before. I thought weekend. If I stay up late,
loads of words.
If I stay up late on Sunday, I should be able to manage that in the weekend. anyway, it hasn't worked out like that.
So how long did it take?
Well, of course,
how long over the weekend did you go?
It's over a year.
Right.
It's over a year. It's well over a year, but I have been distracted by a few other bits and pieces in between. Like I had this brainwave that would be, while I was struggling to get this book out, I thought it'd be a really good idea to do another book. So I published another book before this one was finished. And that was a bloody stupid idea. And I don't know why I did it, because someone said, wouldn't it be funny if you did this other book? And I said, oh, okay. That'd be a good Kickstarter reward. Oh, yeah, I went on Kickstarter to get the money for the book. And that was fun as well, because it's like doing your own little advertising campaign.
Isn't it?
And it's great being your own client. And I met, through Kickstarter, I've met all these people that I would never have met before.
So a couple of questions occur to me going through the book, which is there's not many ads in there, given you've done a ton of ads.
There's only reference to one commercial
Nike,
that I shot.
for example, is there?
No, I think
Nike?
Yeah, no, I don't. I might mention Nike insofar as a little tiny bit about
showing it. There's no.
No, I haven't. I've gone out of my way not to show any ads. The only ads I show are some Wrangler ads, because it tells a little bit about the story of how I met Malcolm and how we, my whole life, creative life, has been just having conversations with other creative people who can do things that I can't do. Like Malk's a great photographer.
Yeah.
We met, we did some stuff together, and then suddenly we got another story that took us to other places.
Yeah.
So the credit list on there is a bloody mile long, because it's all down to the people that I start creative conversations with and end up working with, and we do stuff together, and we generally all benefit from it.
And here's my other question, which is, if you haven't got a client and you make one of your ideas, is it art? Because I'm talking to someone who's obviously shown work at the summer show. And what is the difference between... So some of these things I think are like art.
Well, they are,
if you print them out really big.
Oh,
frame around them.
I know what No, I was just say I know what art is. I haven't got a bleeding clue what art is. Is it a bit of paper? Is it the desire to fill a bit of paper or a canvas with something that doesn't need to exist?
Which you do.
It really doesn't. And advertising, the things it's commercial,
Yeah.
so it needs to exist because it's. But I do that all the time. I've got a blank sheet of paper. There's no reason for the thing to exist, and then it exists. And sometimes I create the reason for it to exist as well. Sometimes I just have to trick myself into thinking this has to exist because of X, Y, and Z. So I might make up a client, or I might. Yeah, why do I do that stuff? I don't know. Generally, because if it falls out the end of my pen and it makes me smile, I am irresistibly drawn to making it real for whatever reason. And sometimes it is for commercial reasons, thinking this is going to lead to other stuff.
So here's some. I'm flicking through the book as we go. So the fruit labels. So they're art to me. These are not done for commercial.
That sounds good.
They're not done for commercial reasons, and they're sort of are they spoofs? They're like spoofs of that genre, but with a different idea that's funny. And it's just interesting to me what's the difference between them being in a book and being on a wall in an art gallery.
Well,
I suppose art doesn't tend to be funny, does it?
No, unless you look at
but
Strigley.
It can be.
Yeah,
Strigley
but it can be.
yeah.
Strigley's one of my favourite artists.
Yeah.
And I find his stuff absolutely bloody hilarious. So, and some Grayson Perry stuff has got wit
it's funny.
And he's funny. And I like, generally, I like a lot of his stuff as well. So,
Or cow, sheep, pig, goose, which makes no sense to people listening, but when they get the book, will make total sense. That I can imagine big somewhere. It's a funny idea.
True. It
looks good.
That has sold I've sold a couple of prints of that in a gallery.
Have you?
But it was done for a client, a large evil corporation. Did they ask for it? No. But I thought, sometimes I think, I used to do that in advertising anyway. It's like the Wrangler story when we did the Wrangler posters. The client didn't want it. The client did not want the posters. But sometimes I think, you really want this stuff. You just don't happen to know that you want it yet. So sometimes you're better off making it.
So how in that instance would you persuade them to not do one poster but that they don't want, but to do 10, 12? How many did you do?
Well, I think the initial burst, I think, was probably about 8 posters, something like that, 6 to 8 posters. We made a bunch first, and they liked them and said, we really like these. It's no more complicated than that. So there was, once they saw the initial lot, and that's down to other creatives like Malcolm buying into the concept. It's bloody great that, Malcolm thought it was a good idea to shoot them. So he shot a bunch of them. And then we went back to a client who said they didn't want them. And the client genuinely said, I didn't think they were going to be that good. I really like them. Let's do some more. And by the way, here's some money for the next campaign. So sometimes you've just got to put your money where your mouth is and prove it. Years and years ago, we won the BT account mainly due to the fact that we shot some commercials before they commissioned us to shoot any commercials. They didn't really know us as an agency, and I managed to persuade. It wasn't hard to persuade a really great creative directing duo, Vaughan and Anthea. They came to us and said, because I had a reputation along with Chris of doing extracurricular stuff. And they said, will you write some scripts? So we thought, well, let's make it real. Let's do it for BT. They're the biggest spenders in advertising. We shot these commercials with Vaughan and Anthea, who I later learned mortgaged their house
to shoot your scripts.
I didn't know that. They mortgaged their flat to shoot these scripts. And then we showed them to the client. They said, here's 10 million quid's worth of business.
You didn't have any link to BT before you did it? You just thought they're big?
There's some conversations that had started. As soon as we saw an opportunity to do BT, and there was definitely some conversations that had started, but they weren't our clients. They hadn't, as far as I know, they hadn't asked us to pitch, and I don't think they knew anything about the commercials before we shot them. It's a bloody long time ago, but you know, whatever is right or wrong about what I've just said there, just because my memory's playing tricks, the idea of just doing things and putting them out in the world and things happening, like you get a new client, whether it's BT, whether you get a campaign that really wasn't planned for or wanted, like Wrangler, or doing that, completely designing that newspaper for Bad Barnet, and then that going on to have a life of its own. You know, I think things can only ever happen. This is not true. I don't believe it. And I haven't finished the sentence yet. But things can generally have got more chance of happening if you make them real and put them out into the world. And then, this is what I found for me, other things happen that are absolutely, completely unpredictable. Because you said I got a bit of art into the Royal Academy. And I did. I got two bits of art into the Royal Academy for the summer exhibition. And that only happened because I wanted to paint my lovely design assistant, Kate Blue.
Yeah.
I thought it's a funny picture. We're painted blue, like, you know, the old Tretyakov picture from the 70s. Only we do some funny iterations of that. And that's the only reason, you know, there was no, let's sit down and work out how we can get into the Royal Academy. You know, most of the big successes I've ever had haven't started off with the end result being the brief.
So can you think of anyone else who operates like that? I can't.
No one I've ever come across in advertising. In fact, I was telling you earlier about how I've never designed a book like that before. I've had we both jointly designed the Creative Circle annual, but that was a very structured annual, even though there was tons of original illustrations in it, but it was a very structured annual. All the sections. So it was more of a mechanical thing. I've never designed a book like that, and the way I'd phrase it is, I mean, I said to you earlier, and I promised my missus I'd never say anything like this to anyone else. All I want to do is pulp them now. Yeah, they're not up to it. They're really not up to it. I want to pulp them. I want to start again, but. You know, I'm someone who's had a car resprayed 3 times for a commercial because it wasn't the right shade. You know, some things just niggle me, and all I can see is every single mistake in it.
Yeah, I can't see any.
Well, so, you know,
I don't know
a man with your eye, but I can tell you,
there's no gold leaf in there.
I can tell you all the mistakes in every job that I've ever done that still rankle with me 30 years later. You know, so, but I did a bit of research, and I was trying to find, you know, like when you're working on an advertising problem, you go out and see what the rivals are doing. So you're working on Nike, you go and see what Adidas are doing, you see what Puma are doing. So I thought, right, okay, there's going to be a certain kind of book. And I went out to a lot of bookshops for a lot of weekends, scouring the bookshops to find a book like mine that I could put next to it and say, yeah, I'm in the right sort of area here. You know, something to gauge it with, and I couldn't find another book like it. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, or whether that makes it a more marketable thing, or whether there's just no market for it at all. I don't know, because I live so firmly in my world. But it exists now, and I think things are going to happen just because it exists. Yeah. Even if you put a £1 on my fee for doing a talk, then something that we've got a result out of it. Now, they won't compensate for me for how much the books cost. But it exists in the world. I won't pulp it. No. We'll see what happens. We'll get it out there. It's very good in parts, I think. But the things I like, other people may not like. I don't bloody know.
You're not doing a great job of selling it.
No, do you know...
It's good in part. There's the odd page.
Do you know, what was lovely is walking in here today, and I get this all the time, and I was just tapped on the shoulder, and someone said, "Here, look, we had got a young runner," and he said, "Here, who's that cool bloke? He's got a cool tracksuit on. I'm bloody 63 years old." It's a young bloke saying he's got a cool tracksuit on that I've designed. Yeah. And I get people coming up to me on the street, and starting conversations because I've got interesting trousers on and the like. And I think this has got it's got every bit as much potential as one of my flushier pairs of trousers to start a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what that conversation might be like, I can't. It might be, what's this pile of shit? Which I wouldn't mind. I like dividing opinion.
Yeah.
See, I've got no problem with people not liking my stuff. Absolutely. In fact, I'm fascinated to hear it when people don't like my stuff. It makes me chuckle sometimes. The only person I don't like not liking my stuff is me.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a killer that keeps me up at night when I do something that I think that is not quite how I wanted it to be. Then I was up at 4:00 this morning because there's stuff in there that is not quite as I want them to be.
Right.
And I can't wait to get rid of these 2,000 books and get them all printed again with some new stuff in them.
We'll put a link to this podcast. Where can people get it? Is it in the shops yet, or is it via?
We might be putting it out on Amazon. Don't know. I've got rid of at least 500 on Kickstarter. There's a big bundle of them gone already. There's a lot that have been sold off our website, which is koi-com.com. So you can buy them direct off of that, and we package a lot up and send them out.
You get more cash that way than Amazon.
Yeah. I want them to be out in the world. I'm going to be taking them along to the talks, and I want people. The reason why it's not designed like a coffee table book, it is a very accessible paperback.
Yeah.
I want them to be dog-eared and on people's desks and referred to, and used in presentations and.
And as someone just said cunningly, that because it's a bit smaller, what is this? Is this A5 or slightly bigger than A5?
I don't know. I took another book and said to the printer that that's the size of the book.
On coffee tables in places like this, it'll end up at the top rather than the bottom.
Never thought of that.
Yeah,
See, it's happened by mistake. Yeah,
So are you going to instantly put up the prices on your talks now that you're a published speaker?
Who knows? It all depends. It really all depends what happens. See, if anyone, I know you've got lots of people who listen to your podcast. I don't know who's listening to this, but of course they won't fall for that subterfuge where I pretend to be a revered published author, and they ring up expecting me to be really expensive because I've blown that already, haven't I?
But how many pages are in this book?
400 pages.
You've got a 400-page book devoted to your work.
That's true. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't got a bleeding clue. It exists now. I can't wait to get on with the next thing. I can't wait to get in front of a few more people. I want to do the second one now, but at the same time, I never want to design a book again.
Really?
I know it sounds daft. I think if this goes down all right, if this creates any interesting possibilities, because the talk and the book is all about that. The stories of where I've done something bloody stupid, invested a bit of time, money, energy, creative resources into it, and then these other amazing things have happened by mistake, like getting into the Royal Academy, like getting into the National Football Museum, like being part of a TV commercial where I'm starring in there as a funny character, and directing it at the same time. There's all these amazing things that have happened, all by doing something stupid to start off with. If that, again, I've lost the plot again, haven't I?
No.
I've lost the plot again.
If that inspires people to try stuff, give it a go, and you sell your book, you'll put yourself through the hell of doing another
this
one.
is where I was going.
Go on.
I've remembered again.
Right.
If it's a success, I'll get another book designer to do it.
Would you?
I like working with other people.
Yeah.
The way I see that is, I'm not a book designer, and now I've got a book to prove it.
That's a great book. I don't know.
It's like, I want it to be better, and I would love to see what someone else did with it. Because really, it's not meant to be a it's not meant to be a beautiful design in its own right. It's not designed to be a beautiful design in its own right. It's meant to be a vehicle for the stuff in it.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a practical vehicle with a humorous bent because it's a pretend self-help book. It's not meant to be you can see that. It's not a precious tome.
No.
Far from it. And that's why it hasn't got any gold leaf on it, and it's not embossed, and it hasn't got any bits of tracing paper bound into it or anything like that. It's the opposite of that. It's a real, let's see if we can get a bit of stupid inspiration from Mark. We've got a problem to crack. Let's delve into this and get some funny inspiration. That's all it's meant to be, with some funny pictures that might make you smile. Nothing more than that. And it's to get into that mindset as well, because everyone overthinks things. Or it's not everyone, but it's commonplace to overthink things. And I think that shows a level of purity, simplicity, that just shows that you don't have to overthink things. You can do these daft ideas that would be appreciated by a sun reader or a 8-year-old kid or a posh person with a university degree with a sense of humour.
Well, I think it's inspiring, particularly for younger people getting in the business, to actually be true to yourself, do what you feel, don't try and copy people, and follow your gut, which is most of this is following your instincts, isn't it? And doing 100%. There's like, you've absolutely followed your gut, done what you want, and doing that has led to, as you say, some surprising, has resulted in you showing stuff at the Royal Academy of Art and all sorts of other things. But you wouldn't think necessarily that would lead to successes like that by just doing almost exactly what you want. Yeah.
I mean, it's do you know, it's as much of a marvel to me that this stuff works out.
Yeah.
And, I've invested a lot of money into that because, I know I told you this before, but there's stuff, I'll go to the archives, try and find stuff I did 30 years ago. It's in bad nick, so I'll remake it all.
Yeah.
That now, but now my archives are up. Now my archives are up to scratch, and I've got some. Yeah. There's an expense in that is probably not apparent to someone who doesn't know me or doesn't know the state of some of the archive material I had. But I couldn't help myself. It's like doing all the copy in the Bad Barnet Bugle.
Yeah,
I had to do it.
Well, we're going to put a link there.
Fantastic.
To you, and thanks for coming in. Brilliant.
Nice to be here. You are going to edit this, aren't you?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
This is it. Thanks.
Cheers, Dave.
Cheers, Mark.